Okay, this is going to be a quick lo-fi video on how to use the HeadRush MX5 plugging straight into the front of an amp. I use a Fender Tone Master Twin, and I'm plugging in, the line going into the front of the Tone Master Twin is coming out of the left output. I also have another amp plugged in, but I don't always use that amp, so I just keep it plugged in there. Come on, focus, man. What are you doing? Um, I I only use that input there when I have that amp on. I just keep the cord plugged in, but I keep it on width of 0 in the output block. Anyway, couple basics here. The way I do it is I keep this all the way up to 11. That's just my first starting point. The reason I do that is because having it here or here or here, it's going to get bumped or whatever. Just put it all the way up, and then you don't have to even worry about it. You know that everything's set that way. The next thing is in global settings. Let's see. I've got my EQ off. Okay, you've got EQ on the front of your amp. You don't have to mess with anything. I've got the level set to 0 dB. Low band and high band are on shelf. Let's see if there's anything else in there that's particularly important. Nothing there. And oh yeah, the you want main out level to be amp level, and you want your rig input to be guitar. So that sets your input level and your output level. So then here we are. This is a jazz chorus preset, but I also like to be able to turn the amp model on and off because I also like the sound of my amp model. So as far as inputs go, you want to go into the input block, and you want to make sure that, what are you doing here? Okay, you want to make sure that you're not doing a whole ton of gating. I believe on this, I don't even use the gate. I think I only use this noise filter. I have a couple presets. I have 3 presets I'll show them to you that I use. One is for humbuckers. That's much lighter. The second one's for P90s. That's a little bit more on the filter. And then 3 is nothing at all. So usually I'll use humbucker unless I'm getting a little noise from some P90s, and then I'll go up to the P91. So basically, you're just not overly gating the thing. Okay? Now, the other end of it is the output. And on my setups, I have this thing on a towel, and for some reason it's making it hard to get into these things. When I'm doing mono into the twin, I keep my rig width at 0%. When I'm doing stereo into 2 amps, I push that up to 100%. I keep my rig volume at 5 decibels. And I found that it'll put the output right about here. It won't really be going in the yellow, but it'll be getting close to it. And that's pretty much what my amp expects when I plug a guitar straight into the front. I've done a lot of A-Bing to arrive at that, but I keep it, that's where I keep it. Now, if you are running a rig with no effects, nothing in it, it's just the guitar coming in and going right through nothing and then coming out to the output, that 5 dB will be perfect. But if you've got loud overdrives and then an amp that happens to be kind of loud, like one of the Marshalls, you need to do some extra level setting, and that's what I have here, to make sure it doesn't start pushing this too hard. Okay, so let me see. Hopefully we can, maybe I'll zoom in a little bit here, and we can go over the way this stuff works. I like to have tremolo in the front. I know usually tremolo's at the end, but I found that it does some cool stuff if you have it in the front. So that's just where I put it. On my rigs, I have a graphic EQ. I do have a couple tweaks on it that I use that are just personal tweaks for me to make my cheaper P90s sound more like Gibson P90s. I just created that setting by ear. But the main thing I use the graphic EQ for is just the gain setting on it. And I'll show you what I do in here. I've got the pedal here, which pushes it from 0 to 6. You can see it's going from 0 to 6. When it's on 0, it's just the sound passing through. If I want a little bit of boost, a little bit of driving the amp, I can push it up and it'll get a nice little clean drive on it. So I use it like a drive pedal. Now these little settings in here, what I call magic, they're just a couple little small tweaks that are the difference I noticed by ear between high dollar Gibson P90 pickups and like Epiphone P90 pickups. It's basically just cheaper pickups have a little bit of mud in the mids. So if you clean that up a little bit, it'll give you some more clarity on your pickups, and it also works great for cheap humbuckers versus expensive humbuckers. So it just helps them a little bit. You don't have to have those. You can just have that all set to 0. But I do like to have that gain boost. Now that's just a tone thing. You don't have to have that. Then I've got some drives, and then I've got the amp. Now another really important thing is I do not use a cabinet. I don't use an IR. The reason why is this is a setup for it going into the front of an amp. Your amp is the cabinet. You don't want a cabinet on a cabinet. It's redundant. Your amp, you should choose an amp that you like the sound of the cabinet. The reason I use a twin versus say a Princeton or something is I don't like small boxy cabs because I think they just sound a little too boxy, and it's usually right around maybe the size of a deluxe that it starts to get a sound that I prefer. But when you move up to a twin with the bigger cabinet, that's really where I like it. So that's the sound I like. That's what I use, and I'm not gonna like try to color it. I use speakers that I like and a cabinet that I like. So it doesn't really matter what your outputs and stuff are here. They can, with your drives, they can be loud. You can have a Marshall in here that is loud. One thing I don't like about HeadRush's cabinets is they don't have a gain setting at the end of it all, like an output gain, because some of their amps are loud, and I need to pull the volume of it down, because when you turn it on versus the signal just going straight, let's say you have the signal going straight through, it's like coming out at just the right volume to go into the front of your amp, and then you turn this amp model on and suddenly it's way louder and it's pushing the front of your amp, and you don't want it to. I would love to have an output gain added to all the amp models at the end of them. They don't have that, so what I do is this. I use the gray compressor, which is the Ross compressor, and I basically set it at sustain 0 and output level 100. And what that does is it limits it. Okay, that's a known level that it's going to come out at. Okay, so I try to keep the noise down to nothing. Sometimes I'll put it up to maybe 4 to 10% if I want a little bit of compression, but mostly I'm just using it to set this level, and that level is a bit low compared to what you can get off the graphic EQ with, like I say, a +3 or a +6. So 100% on this Ross is keeping your volume under control. And then you're going to see that I have a second compressor, and this is the dynamic compressor, or whatever you call it. And I basically have it set to almost doing nothing, but I'm using this gain here. I could use the EQ, another EQ block, but the EQ blocks only go up to 6 decibels. And in certain scenarios, I want it to be even louder than that. And the scenario where I make it 7.5 decibels is when I'm not using the amp model. Okay, I try to equalize the volume of my straight signal into my amp with the volume of the amp model. So you'll see that I've got these scenes set up here, And on these scenes, when it's red, the amp model's not working. It's off. But when I hit this scene, it turns the jazz chorus model on, and in here, it'll change the preset to go down to 6 dB. And the 6 dB is where I want this signal to be at volume-wise, so that it goes through this last stuff at the end of the chain and then hits this out block at plus 5 decibels. And I know if I'm at 100% here, go to 6 dB here, and then come out the block that's at 5 dB, that it's going to be roughly at, I mean, if my amp model, if this particular amp model on, I know at 6 dB, it's going to come out at roughly the volume of plugging my guitar straight in. However, when I turn my amp model off, I need to boost it a little bit more here to 7.5, so it automatically switches it to 7.5, and that will make this signal just about right when it comes out here at plus 5. So what I'm able to do with this setup, basically, you can change the effects around. You don't have to have all these particular effects, but I'm able to do this with this same setup with all different amp models. And some of them are louder, and I'll pull, when I have it on, I'll pull the preset for this down a little bit. And some of them are not that loud. They're a little quiet, and then I boost them up because I will, depending on the amp model, when I turn the amp on and off, I want it to be about the same volume between straight into my amp that I'm plugging into and using the model. And there's always a difference in volumes per amp model, so you have to tweak this gain a little bit to just set it just where you want it. And just a quick note on this jazz chorus model, for some reason you can't assign a foot switch to turn the chorus on and off or the reverb on and off. So what I have here is I have a chorus on and off that is the jazz chorus, and all it's doing is switching the preset of the jazz chorus model. And you can see here, when the chorus is on, I have chorus fixed, and then when I press this, it just switches it to off. So it's the same exact, see, you can see it's two different presets, jazz chorus 2 and jazz chorus 2 with it on. It'd be neat if scenes had three settings and I could put the reverb on and off in there, but it doesn't. So anyway, that's a tip or a little tutorial on how to use the MX5 plugging straight into the front of your amp. And I will try to get this rig and a couple of my other rigs, like my deluxe rig and stuff, with these scenes and stuff set up in it. I'll try to put it in the description. So if I figure out how to do that, check the description. You just download it and put this on, and you can mess around with it and make it, you know, your own with your own drives. And, you know, I just happen to have this hold in there right now because I was experimenting with it. But yeah, another side thing is the vibrato, man. I love that effect. It's kind of an underdog in there. Everyone always goes to chorus, but try the vibrato. It's pretty cool. All right, that's it. Hope you have fun with your MX. It's a great unit, and I'm so excited that HeadRush is still in the game, and it's just going to get better and better. HeadRush is where it's at. See you guys later.